buckle down.
There was a lot of things that said this movie was going to be bad. The fact that it was released in January. The fact that it had hacking as its premise. The fact that it had Chris Hemsworth as a hacker / dude who can beat up and kill people. But it was directed by one of my favorite directors, Michael Mann. Michael Mann's responsible for films like Collateral, Heat, The Insider. The thing is, the last movie he did was Public Enemies back in 2009. That movie wasn't that great. The acting was phenomenal, but the problem is he had this obsession with trying to use HD camera work as well as handheld camera work, which he was perfect with in Collateral, but Public Enemies just looked weird. So I knew I was going to expect the same thing. I didn't expect something so utterly boring. Holy God! This movie was so boring! The movie is about a hacker who attacks a nuclear plant in China and causes a meltdown, and so they bring Chinese and FBI experts in together to try and figure out who it is, because the Americans got attacked, but they were able to stop it. But then there's only one guy who can figure out this code, and that was Chris Hemsworth, who's a felon for going to jail for hacking banks or something. So they start filtering through the code and trying to find the little pieces of trail, and they follow them and stuff happens. And the first thing I was worried about was that they're gonna Hollywoodize hacking. If you want an example, remember that whole hacking thing in Skyfall? Yeah, that stuff was bullcrap. But this was actual code. I couldn't understand any of it. It looked boring, but that's what actual code was, so I was happy about that. But then this movie moves so slow. It moves at the pace of a freaking snail. I had seen American Sniper just before this, and it was the exact same amount of time, and that movie moved great. That movie had great pacing. This movie moves, there's so many blank spots, like just parts where no one's talking, where people are just looking at stuff. And I'm getting most of the interpretation, but the amount of time it's held on that shot is just ludicrous. The acting, I'll admit, is awful in this movie. Everyone looks bored. No one looks interested in the story whatsoever. Viola Davis is just, No one has any commitment to it, and I don't blame them, because this movie just moves along so slowly. And then there's times where it's just ludicrous. Chris Hemsworth and this Chinese girl, they literally hang out for an hour or two, and then they start having sex. It's just, okay, that was sudden. The idea possibly is interesting, but then once they figure out what the guy's after, what the hacker's after, it's boring. There's no point to it. It's just this very basic, mundane, hacking. Use that to affect the stock market, blah, 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 lots of money, money, money. And the camera work is shoddy too. I know that Michael Mann has a real obsession with using hand cam. For the most part, he's always made it work. There's times where it comes up and it's completely out of focus. Or there's parts where they're following people and the camera is shaking worse than freaking Paul Greengrass's work in the Bourne movies. It makes me wonder what Mann was thinking when he was making this movie. Like, I can just imagine. Is everyone asleep? Yeah? Alright, acting. It's a boring concept. You're not interested at all in what's going on with the characters. The story moves at the pace of a snail. It's not Hollywoodized. If anything, it's the opposite. It's boringized. That's this movie in a nutshell, is just boring. And it's a real shame, because I love Michael Mann's work. I watch Collateral almost every New Year's Eve. I could never watch this movie again. I can't believe I'm going to do this, but Blackhat gets a 1 out of 7. There's literally nothing about this movie that makes me want to see it again. There's nothing about it that's redeeming. Wait, I'll take that back. Some of the music was good. Mann has an ear for kind of odd, interesting ambient music with city life. But there was also some crap where it just kept on going brrr, brrr, brrr. If there's one consolation I should get out of this film, it's the fact that I got a free courtesy ticket. They said it was audio issues. I just think it's because the movie sucked. Anyway, guys, that's all from me. I will see you guys next time for Morning Tea review. I'm interested to see what else this year has in store for me. Just as long as it's not another Blackhat. Mind you, Universal and Legendary are releasing that Seventh Son. Doesn't that movie just look like...
Buckle down.